hours. I want to bring in now a top White House official, Marc, White House Director of Legislative Affairs, joining us on set. Marc, thanks for being in here. And let me just ask you, 2 weeks from today, 2 Fridays from today, are you confident that the government will not be shut down?
We don't think the government's going to shut down, Hallie. Everybody has an interest in making sure that our military is funded, that the responsibilities we have are continued. So we expect that we'll have continued funding of the government.
Okay, so the government's going to be open in 2 Fridays. But let me ask you about the negotiations to get there, because in my reporting from this White House meeting yesterday with Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, Mitch McConnell, Paul Ryan, talking with folks on the Hill inside the White House, not a ton of progress other than agreeing to continue the conversation. You have a really long way to go in 14 days.
Well, so let me tell you where I think we are. What we have agreed to is to, in essence, have a 2-year budget cap deal. We've agreed to, in essence, break the sequester. We've agreed to where we should be on defense spending. We've not yet agreed on the non-defense spending angle. But, Hallie, keep in mind that Congress should pass all of its appropriations bills by September 30th. The president is here trying to bring these parties together because we're now close to Christmas Eve without yet having the Congress actually function in a way that gets its spending bills passed.
There's a couple of sticking points here. You mentioned one, which is non-defense spending. Democrats want to see an increase if, in fact, defense spending goes up. Where is the White House's red line on that?
Well, the White House supports the position that House Republicans and Senate Republicans have, which is if we're going to break the sequester, we should break it at the levels that it was before. So it's not what Democrats are asking for is is a position of saying if you're going to add $54 billion or as some hypothetical number to defense spending,
is $54 billion
we need to have a similar number in non-defense spending. But in essence, if you break the sequester and go to where the president's budget was, the House Republicans, Senate Republicans, there's additional non-defense spending still in the plan.
I get that, but are you not willing to negotiate on that?
I think we've been negotiating on that, Hallie. We've been having multiple conversations about it, and where we believe we are is that in order to make sure that we have what we need for our military, which is what Secretary Mattis spoke to them about yesterday, was to say, look,
brought him in the Situation Room to say, here's something.
Say we are having it's not just a North Korea problem. There's a serious North Korea threat to our country, but it's also the continued CRs mean that the Pentagon does not have the ability to have the regular funding to have contracts to make sure that our equipment is ready for war if we need it.
So that's the Republican argument for defense spending for that issue, but then there's the Democrats' argument on DACA and on Dreamers and on what happens here on immigration. That is something that Democrats, Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, have been very vocal about. You do not want, correct, DACA to be tied to this end-of-the-year funding bill.
So let's talk about DACA for a second. Deferred action.
But you don't want to tied to this end-of-the-year funding bill.
Yes, let me explain why. Deferred action for childhood arrivals. What people need to understand is that those are for people actually aged 16 to 38 in this country who get work. The Obama administration made a decision to provide those permits that courts have ruled was unconstitutional. The White House has given Congress, General Kelly went to Congress back 10 months ago and said, fix this problem.
Listen, we know all the reporting on DACA and how this unfolded.
Because they keep mixing this up. What we're doing, what Democrat position is, we're going to hold the military hostage. We're going to hold funding for the national security threats we have for a problem that Congress has not fixed. The president has said he is willing to have a deal on DACA. He wants a deal on DACA, but why should it be tied to a spending bill?
So my question is, why should Democrats trust the president when he says that, given that the last time this conversation happened back in September, it seemed as though he pulled the rug out from under them?
He did not pull the rug out from under them.
Why should they trust the president?
Because the president's sincere in saying he wants to do this.
The president's sincere about saying a lot of things, then he's reversed his positions on a lot of things.
Let's look at the commitments that he's made. You guys have covered commitments he made on Jerusalem just this week, commitments he's made about his desire to repeal Obamacare, commitments he made to the economy and where it is today. He has made many campaign commitments he has kept. He has promised he wants to fix this problem. Those
commitments, let's just know, played to his base well. DACA would not.
We sent to Congress our priorities. We sent them months ago. Congress has yet to come back to us with a proposal to say, here, Mr. President, here's our way to get your priorities done. We have done what we sent to Congress what we need to get a deal on DACA. The president's ready to deal on it.
Are you getting any indication that Democrats will back off of this negotiating demand? Because this could be a real impasse December 22nd.
So Senator Schumer several years ago said that when you try to put policy riders on spending bills, it's like coming into your house, taking your wife and your children hostage, and then trying to negotiate the price of your house.
So your strategy is to use the senator's words against him now.
That's a direct quote that he said about putting policy riders on spending bills. We don't think it's appropriate to shut down the government over trying to find amnesty for illegal arrivals.
It sounds like that is a red line for you, but I want to ask about something else, because as all of this is happening, by the way, you want to get a tax bill done.
You bet.
That seems like it's going to be a heavy lift, and I want to ask about Susan Collins specifically, because as Sahil Kapoor, friend of the show, notes in Bloomberg, the 3 biggest stories Washington, a broad overhaul of the U.S. tax structure, the health care makeover, and this spending bill that would avoid a government shutdown all depend more or less on one person, and that person is Susan Collins. You told Reuters that the White House made a deal, basically, with Collins on some of these health care subsidies, other related health care funding in exchange for support on tax reform. This conference committee is getting ready to work. What other deals are you getting ready to make with people whose votes are, like Collins's, not so solid?
Hallie, we think Senator Collins' support is solid. She gave us her vote in the Senate. We're very excited where we stand. We think negotiations.
What other wheeling and dealing are you going to be working on?
We think that there's actually where the House and Senate are is very similar. We're delivering 20% corporate rate to make sure that we no longer have jobs leaving our country. We're providing middle-income tax relief. We're simplifying the tax code. Where they are in the two plans is very similar. We expect this to get done quickly.
Before I let you go, your job is obviously legislative affairs, working with members of Congress, and there seems to be a real dust-up issue with a specific member of Congress, John Lewis, because in response to his announcement, he's skipping the opening of that Civil Rights Museum tomorrow. The White House says, we think it's unfortunate these members of Congress wouldn't join the president in honoring the incredible sacrifice civil rights leaders made to right the injustices in our history. Civil rights leaders like John Lewis. So what is the White House doing to reach out to Congressman Lewis now, given how problematic this has become? What are you doing?
You know, Hallie, I think this is unfortunate. When I was the chief of staff for Mike Pence back in Congress, Mike went with John Lewis, an American hero in the civil rights movement, went down and commemorated in a bipartisan way the Bloody Sunday, the massacre on the Edmund Pettus Bridge. It was a unique moment, and NBC should have probably footage of that for the 45th anniversary. John Lewis is a hero of the civil rights movement.
So isn't it incumbent on the president to reach out to him?
Hallie, we were invited. The president was invited to go to open this museum. He is going to it to try for atonement and to recognize the achievements of the civil rights movement.
So you're not
concerned?
concerned?
I don't know why individuals decide to say that they're going to not show up, that somehow that advances the cause. This president is reaching out and going to the museum to celebrate it.
So you have no concerns about John Lewis's?
Of course you have. I think it's very disappointing he's chosen not to be there.
Are you talking at all to his office?
Hallie, we had got an invitation. The president's going. His office is the one that decided to boycott the event.
Marc Short, we're out of time. Thank you for coming on set, talking about a lot of different topics with us
Thanks
here.
for having me.
I appreciate it. I'm sure I'll see you at the White House at some point. We want to